This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, and today is my special guest. It's a returning guest. He's appeared in many episodes of The Haunting. He is a deliverance minister, which is like an exorcist minister. He's an author. I'm actually in one of his books that he's going to talk about. He was a bouncer. He's had interactions with wrestlers over the years, including Kevin Sullivan, my good buddy, and the Road Warriors. He's done it all. He's been involved in hauntings all his life. Here he is, Reverend Bill Bean. How are you today, sir?
Doing great, Hannibal. Thank you so much for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
It's always a pleasure, too. And sorry about your co-host of your podcast, where I've been on a few times. He recently passed away.
Yeah, Kev Baker. He was such a good guy. Hannibal, I've been praying for him, quite a while prior to his passing. And I just had an awful feeling that he was not well. He did not look well. It looked like he was losing weight. And then, COVID and the effects of COVID finally took him. But I think he fought for a while, and I was always so concerned about him when we were doing the podcast. I was worried about him getting rest because it's 6 hours time difference over there in Scotland. And so when we were doing the show, by the time we wrapped up, it would be 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was always very concerned for him about that. But man, he just wouldn't make a big deal about it. And he said he was fine and he enjoyed doing the show. Loved him dearly. And I'm heartbroken for his wife and his son and his mom and, the rest of the family. They're just devastated, Hannibal. It's an awful thing.
Yeah, he was a nice guy in my dealings with him. Al has a question here. You may or may not have heard of WWE Hall of Famer Sunny's continuous brushes with the law, and she's just been arrested again for threatening to stab someone with scissors while under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And Al wants to know, is there anything you can do with her?
Yeah, absolutely. If she wanted it, and that's the key to the whole thing. If a person wants it, I can't. So free will is the key to everything. God gave us free will, so we're free to make our choices. And I did see that story, I think early this morning, somewhere around 4 or 5 o'clock this morning. And it's really sad. I've never met Sunny, but I would help her if she wanted the help. And, you really got to want something. There was a time, as you know, that, in my youth, I grew up very hard, and my parents died at a young age, and I quit school in the 8th grade and lied about my age and went to work for a construction company and worked with some really tough guys. And I had to grow up very fast. And I grew up on the streets. I used drugs. I drank. I was violent. And so I made a lot of bad choices in my life. And I very easily could have ended up dead or in prison. A lot of the people that I hung out with back then are dead or in prison. And I could have been there as well. So I finally had an epiphany one day that I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I actually prayed and asked God to help me. And that's how I came out of it. And so when I see people like Sunny and other people like that, it's very sad. And yes, if she contacted me, I would be there for her in a flash and do anything, everything that I could by the power of God working through me to help her. But she's got to want that.
Do you think that might have anything to do with some demonic possession, or is that just drugs and alcohol taking over her life?
Yes, it works hand in hand with the demonic. And I know a lot of people might find this hard to believe, but trust me, it's true. The spirit of pharmakia comes in. It's a demonic spirit of pharmakia that comes in when a person is under the influence of alcohol and or a drug. And so what happens is all life operates on frequency and vibration. So if God, Yahweh, hovered over the waters, which I believe he hovered in a craft, and spoke the world into existence, Well, he did that by the frequency and vibration of his voice. So all life operates on frequency and vibration. And if our frequency and vibration is on high, life is good, life is positive. Nobody has a perfect life. We all have a set of issues and challenges in life. That's life. However, if we are on high frequency and high vibration, life is generally good and positive, and we can move forward. But if we're on low, life sucks. And there's always a problem, a drama, a situation. It's like the person has a black cloud over their head and there's never an answer. And the devil is in the details, and demons feed off of that. And that's how they increase and the person decreases. And demonic possession can take place in a situation like that. And certainly demonic oppression or attachment as well. So there are several levels to this. But make no mistake, when a person is in the throes of addiction, they are wide open and susceptible and vulnerable to demonic attack.
How has it been through COVID doing the exorcisms of the houses that are haunted, where people can call you in and you'll try and help them out with whatever problems? Has it been less because people are afraid also of catching COVID, or are the problems still there and people don't care? They just want these things out of their house?
Combination of both. And it's been very difficult for me because I haven't been getting on any airplanes. And I just turned down a TV series that wanted me to fly to Los Angeles and shoot a bunch of episodes for this season 1 of the TV series. And I prayed about it. I pray about everything. And look, I'm not some smiley face preacher that is working people. I'm real and I'm authentic. And what I do is real and authentic. And I praise God for it. I didn't choose to do this. God chose me to do it. That said, the cases have increased. I have traveled to some people in my car, with a driving distance of 6-8 hours each way. And others I have sessions with via Skype and or phone. And again, for the person that would think that that's not effective and there's no way that that can work, I beg to differ, because it's the next best thing to being there. It goes right back to God speaking the world into existence with his voice. So if I'm an agent for God and God's truly working through me to help people, well, then I can help them via Skype, phone, or anything else, even a broadcast like this, and even on my own show that I do every Sunday. So I pray every day of my life that God works through me to be a blessing to somebody. And I'm so thankful. And I didn't understand this in the beginning, Hannibal. I didn't understand why God would call a man like me, because I had such a low opinion of myself. I thought that there would be no way possible that I could ever be a blessing or help to anyone. God must have a sense of humor, calling on somebody like me to help anybody. And it took quite a while for me to come to the understanding that it was true, that he really was calling me to do this. And then once I was able to resolve that, then I went out and started help. Well, I did a lot of study first. I spent 3 years in biblical studies and studies of ancient history, and you'd name it. So I said earlier in the interview that I quit school in the 8th grade, but I spent years in real studies that broadened my intellect. And I'm happy to tell you that by the power of God, I don't brag this. I don't brag about anything, but I'm blessed with wisdom and knowledge far beyond anything that I could ever imagine in my life. I can never thank God and praise God enough for that, but I had to want that as well. And I dedicated myself to years of studies to broaden my intellect, which then gave me confidence and the understanding that, well, maybe it is possible that God could work through me to help people. And that changed everything for me. And after the first family that I'd helped, it was a family here in Maryland in 2013. After going there and being a part of that, and really not knowing what I was doing, just being guided by God to do it to the best of my ability and with the power of God working through me. But it was the greatest thing, Hannibal, because I knew that was my purpose in life. I knew why I was here on this earth. I knew why God had me to be on this earth, and I knew that he could work through me to help people. So I never looked back after that. So I have a mission, and it is truly a mission from God that I set out every single day of my life to try and help somebody, to be a blessing to them. I take the sufferings of others very personally and seriously because of my own sufferings. So I know what it's like to be down on low, and I know what it's like to suffer. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to not want to live. For a long time, as a young man, I prayed that somebody would just come up and put a gun to my head and pull the trigger because I didn't want to live. I lived my life on the edge for many, many years. And then, as you mentioned in the interview early, as we got into this, that I spent time in the bar business. I spent 22 plus years in the bar business as a bouncer, being involved in many fights and having many interactions with a lot of the wrestlers. And it's been an amazing journey, Hannibal. It truly has, from going and being in the very worst of times into a place now to where I have a good and blessed life, and I wouldn't trade my life for anyone's life on this planet. And I thank God and praise God for that. And that shows you that even though, we may have a period and a season of suffering, and everything seems like it's going wrong and the world is against us, that can always change, but we have to really want that.
Mikey on here wants to know, going back to Sunny, everyone's favorite subject, do you think if she keeps going on the way she has been, she'll kill herself? I think that it's a miracle she hasn't killed herself or anyone else with all of her continuous DUI convictions.
It's sad, Hannibal. That's a sad story. It really is. And I've known many people like Sonny. I grew up with people like that. And since I became this spiritual warrior for God, I've helped hundreds of people like Sonny. So I'm very familiar with that type of dynamic. And I pray for her. I do. Scott Hall was another one that I had interactions with in the past. And we never met or anything like that, but we had some online discussions back and forth. I let him know that I was praying for him, and he appreciated that. And Sonny, if you're watching out there, get a hold of me. You if you want help. I mean, don't waste my time if you're not real and authentic and you don't want the help and you enjoy doing what you're doing. You go right ahead and do it. Don't waste my time. But if you are sincerely seeking to be free from this kind of stuff, I would gladly help you. So please, if you're watching or listening, reach out. I feel really bad for Hannibal, and I've seen a lot of these types of situations, and what you said is absolutely true. It's a miracle that she hasn't killed someone, in the process of with the drunk driving and all that kind of stuff, or even, with these threats or whatever she's doing. Demons are obviously fueling this, and their mission is to kill, rob, and destroy. So I pray for her that she gets help soon, because she is on a path of destruction.
Yeah, it seems like it's in the jail so far since 2018. She's spent a total of 3 years in jail. It doesn't seem to be helping. So
It's
I don't know
sad.
what's going to be rock bottom for her.
Usually in a case like that, and again, I don't know Sonny. I've never had any talk or interaction with her, so I can't speak for her. What I can say, generally in a case like that, something has happened to a person. Usually it's in childhood where something really bad happened. And then that stays with a person, Hannibal, and it will stay with a person until someone like me, and not that I'm anything special. It's the power of God working through me. So I don't claim to be anything special at all. There's lots of people out there like me doing this type of work. But it requires someone like me to come along, God working through me or whomever else, to deliver that person. Otherwise, the devil will have a legal right to be there, and those demons will remain attached to that person throughout their life. And the person doesn't even realize what's going on. All they know is that their life sucks and they have one problem after another, and they can't figure out why this continues to happen.
City of Roses 79 would like to know how somebody would get rid of a negative attachment from making an offering of one's soul for, let's say, a certain outcome much earlier in their life that they may now regret?
Well, again, through a spiritual deliverance, which, like you said in the start of the show, is a form of an exorcism. That's how you get rid of it. And you have to have, so these contracts that people make with the devil are not valid. People, and we have heard all about these types of stories. I've personally been involved in many, many cases where people sold their souls. These contracts aren't valid. The devil's a liar, and he is the original con man. And so it's not his soul to take. Yahweh created us. He's the one that's in charge of our souls, and he even created the devil for that matter. So the devil is a liar, and people think that they've sold their souls, and they think that they are unredeemable after that. It's a lie. It's not true. And I've been involved in many cases to where God worked through me to free that person and to deliver them and break all of that off of them. So whoever is sending this in, I urge them to get in contact with me, and I'll help you by the power of God working through me. I'll help you to break it and to be free. But make no mistake, there is a legal right there, because you've given legal right to the devil to be in your life and have demons assigned to you. So that will not leave you until someone like me comes along, and again, God working through me to get rid of that garbage and to break it off of you.
Have you had any really disturbing exorcisms in the past year or so since I last talked to you?
Nothing that, well, a few, but nothing on the level of what we had previously discussed. Sometimes during these exorcisms, people will growl, they will scream. Sometimes their body and face contorts. You would have to see it to believe it. And even if you were standing there with me seeing it, you'd be rubbing your eyes going, did I really just see that? Did that person really just twist in a way that a human body can't? Did that person's face change in that way? Did that person's eyes just turn all white or all black or red? Or in one case, at San Diego, the person's eyes turned like a yellowish green color and with reptilian slits in the pupils. I'll never forget that. I won't forget any of them. But here lately, I'd say over the last year, there's been an increase in the cases, but the severity, not so much as far as some of the other things that I've encountered. But yeah, there have been a few things where people, just screamed and screeched, and then they vomit and sometimes defecate, and it's got to come out somehow, and it comes out in those ways, and sometimes through the top of the head. So when these demons are being cast out, they've got to come out somehow, some way, and it is not pleasant. And I've been involved in many situations like that, but I'm always thankful that God is with me and working through me to help the person become free from whatever's going on.
What did you think about the actual movie, The Exorcist, and how real is that compared to some of the situations that you've been involved with?
Well, that movie, and I was in a movie documentary based on that story. The Booth brothers did a movie. They did a movie for NBC Universal, and it was Sci-Fi Channel. And I think it came out in 2010. It was called The Haunted Boy, and I was in that. And so I am very familiar with the case. And there's a lot of validity to that, Hannibal. Did the person's head twist all the way around? I doubt it, but I have seen things like I just described that the human body supposedly can't do. And I've seen levitation as well. Again, the projectile vomiting. I've seen the psychic abilities from the demon to be able to tell a person about themselves and what's going on. Now, I never have a dialogue with a demon or demons ever. The only dialogue, and they've tried to talk and say things. I have to be in control of the situation at all times. And I can only do this by the power of God working through me. Yes, you have to I'm a strong man in mind, body, and spirit, but you have to, when you're faced with situations like this, a lot of people would run. But I have to be in control of the situation at all times. And so I've had many experiences and many of these exorcisms to where the demon or demons would try and talk to me. And then I would just take power and authority and say, silence, by the mighty power of Yahweh, in Jesus' name, I command you to be still and I command you to depart. So it's that battle back and forth. But I have to be in control at all times. And that's easier said than done, because I've been in situations to where people were trying to bite me. People were spitting on me. Just as fast as I'm casting one demon out, another one manifests. One lady, she must have had 20 or more of these things inside of her. And it was a process of casting them out one after the other. It's exhausting. After it's over with, I have nothing left. I can recall times of after everything's over. And I have to tell you this too. After the exorcism part is over with, it's not over, because then I have to go through the entire home, binding and rebuking and casting out any demons that might be hiding or lurking in the home. So I have to bless the home, the land. Then I call the family together for another final prayer and blessing. So there's a lot involved in this. I mean, there's times that I've walked into a residence at, say, 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon and came out at 5, 6 in the morning. So there's a lot involved. And I can recall times to where I'd have to go to a diner or someplace after leaving the family. And I can recall just like sitting there with my head in my hands, not having anything left, and praying that God will help me to restore my energy just so I could get back in my vehicle, or, if I'd flown somewhere in a rental vehicle, to get back to my home or hotel or whatever it is. It's that draining. So this is very serious stuff. The Exorcist movie was based on true events. It happened to a young man, not a girl. And it happened here in Maryland. I think it originated, the family lived here in Maryland, and that man just died, by the way. I can't remember his name, but I just read a story about that the man that was possessed died, and he lived here somewhere in, I want to say towards Western Maryland. And, but it went from, I think the family, so it started here in Maryland. I think the family had moved to St. Louis, and it continued there, and then they came back. And so the story is very, very real. It's very disturbing. Of course, Hollywood got in there. I think the movie came out in 1973. And, but I have to say, based on what I saw in that film, they weren't reaching too far, Hannibal. I have seen a lot of those things that were presented in that movie. And so it wasn't a real far stretch to say that, they were pretty close. They were pretty close to the actual events, in my opinion.
Now, as you know, I'm interested in seeing some of this stuff, and I had asked a girl if she'd be willing to find somewhere that supposedly is haunted by a demonic entity and stay there for a weekend or something. And she said, well, there's nothing you could do if these demonic entities appear and come after you, but there actually is, isn't there? What would you do as a civilian if you actually had an encounter with one of these entities that are negative spirits?
The greatest weapon is to call on God. So God's name is Yahweh. His name is listed 6,823 times in the Bible, replaced with the title of Lord. So where you see Lord in caps, that should say Yahweh. Jesus' Hebrew name is Yahshua, which means Yahweh saves. Yahweh saves through him. So what I would say, and I urge people to say this all the time, Yahweh rebuke thee, in Jesus' name depart, and be authoritative. So if you were in this building, for the weekend, now you see these demons coming after you and you're starting to feel the effects, that would be your greatest weapon, to say, Yahweh rebuke thee, in Jesus' name depart, and be very authoritative, and man, they'd be going like a shot. They cannot withstand the power of God. I don't care who they are, and I don't care if it's 500 of them. If you are really operating in what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage, if you're operating in that and you are bold and you are fierce in mind, body, and spirit, then there's nothing that they can do because they've got nothing to feed on. So when you are taking power and authority over them, they must depart. It's as simple as that. And for someone like you, and look, I wouldn't recommend this to you or anybody else to do this. But what you have in your favor is that you are a very strong person in mind, body, and spirit. So you would be less susceptible to a demonic infiltration. Not to say that they couldn't try and manipulate things, but behind the scenes to cause destruction in your life, but they couldn't come head on to really try and take you over, especially if you invoke the power of God over them.
Pulsar Lights would like to know, in your opinion, is the Amityville horror true or a work? The guy that bought the house after the murders was allegedly experiencing paranormal activity.
It's a great question, and it's both. I personally know one of the Amityville kids, who's a good friend of mine, and I actually performed a spiritual deliverance over him in his home in Arizona. And he told me the real story. And the part of the story is a work, but another part of the story is not. So evil was really there and present, but they did, let's just say there was a manipulation of the telling of the story. It worked. Biggest selling horror novel in history. So yes and yes. Part of it was a work, but other parts was not a work. And the family was really affected by evil. And he was affected by evil up until that time of a few years ago when I went to his home in Arizona and performed an exorcism, spiritual deliverance over him, which he's doing very well now. Praise God.
Sweet Teabag would like to know your opinion of the Undertakers Ministry of Darkness back when they were doing that in the Attitude Era.
I thought it was evil. And I don't know, Mark. I've heard that he's a Christian and that he's very involved with his church. And that's great. And I hope that's true. But when you were doing something like that, and even though it's a wrestling angle and all that, you're still invoking the power of darkness. And so this is something that was, and I recall seeing it. And I recall also turning the channel sometimes because I could feel the evil coming from that. And so a lot of people, again, would say, oh, you're crazy. That's just entertainment. Let me tell you something. Satan is the prince and the power of the air, which means the airwaves. Okay. So recently did a show about this, about the dangers of entertainment and music. Not all of it is evil, but I presented it in the performer's own words and what their intentions were and are. So they say it themselves. And I was not a fan of that angle. I thought it was very dangerous for a lot of people, certainly for the people that were involved and the people that were watching, because as crazy as this might sound, demons, again, goes right back to what I just said. Satan's the prince and the power of the air, which means the airwaves, and demons can travel through TV sets and computers and any type of electronic device, because the devil is the prince and the power of the air. So keep that in mind. And I recommend to people to be very careful, what you're watching and taking in, because there is a danger involved in it.
Now, I'm sure you probably heard about this. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was a ECW incident where Raven crucified the Sandman, and Kurt Angle was in attendance and threw a fit, and Raven later had to come out and apologize. What did you think about that whole situation? And do you think it was in bad taste, or do you think it's just like a movie and that type of stuff could happen in sports entertainment and just be thought of as entertainment?
Well, again, I understand that. And at that point, I guess it was Paul that was, the guy running that deal there, ECW, Paul Heyman. I understand that you're in business and you've got to do things to create a shock value and all that type of stuff to generate interest. I understand that. But for me, I think it was in bad taste and it was very dangerous. Again, a mock of God. And so when these types of things happen, and the people involved don't realize this until something bad happens, if you stir God to anger, he will set his face against you, and there's going to be problems. A big receipt there, a big receipt that no one can imagine. So I don't know any of those guys. I did have an encounter with Raven one time, and that was strange too. We were on an airplane, and he stood up and looked at me, and I looked at him, and I knew who he was. I didn't think he'd know who I was, but we didn't speak. We just looked at each other, and then just kind of, it was just bizarre. And that was about 2 or 3 years ago. He had real short hair. It was, I think it was dyed blonde, and had his piercings and all that stuff. But that's the only encounter I had with him. But don't know him. Wish him well. Sam, man, I don't know. But, you know, in my opinion, coming at it from a godly perspective, I wasn't a fan of it. And I did think that it was in bad taste. And again, we just got to be very careful, because when those lines blur, when they cross, man, it can be dangerous for everybody involved and the people that are taking it in as well.
Now, this is an interesting question because obviously I'm a fan of all these bands, but what do you think of heavy metal bands that sing about the devil, such as Ozzy, Iron Maiden, Dio, etc.?
Well, you know, you could see in the background all those guitars. Years ago, I played heavy metal music and played it well.
Oh, those are real? I thought it was just a picture.
They're not gimmicks. They're all real. I got about 22 of them in my office here hanging on the wall, and they're all real. And many years ago, I played in bands and lead guitar, and I played all that metal stuff. Hannibal, I could play it all. And I had a lot of evil stuff going on in my life at that time, and I didn't realize until I made God first in my life. I started to research some things. And when I was playing the music back then, I didn't research anything. I learned to play, I'm self-taught, learned to play by ear. So I was matching up sounds by what I was hearing on the records and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I played anything from Ozzy's Black Sabbath. That's what I see. There's more of those guitars there. Ozzy's Black Sabbath stuff to
Be
Jimi
careful
Hendrix.
showing all those on camera. If you live in Baltimore, I hear there's a lot of crime.
Yeah, that's the armpit of America, Baltimore, unfortunately. But yeah, I grew up listening to Black Sabbath, you know, Ozzy, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Deep Purple, all those bands. And, you know, my mother, who was suffering, and she suffered more than any other person I've ever seen in my life. And she begged me not to play that music in the house because we were already under demonic attack and we were having all this torment going on in the home. And I didn't listen to her, and I continued to play it, and it didn't realize, Hannibal, I didn't know the words. I was just trying to match up sounds and play the music. And it wasn't until years later that I got convicted in my spirit. Once I really started making God first in my life, I went and I started reading the lyrics to some of these songs. And I got on my knees after that, and I asked God to forgive me, because a lot of these songs, it's not entertainment. There's a real purpose behind this, and it is to lead people away from God. And people like Ozzy Osbourne. Now, look, I'll say this. I have 2 episodes coming out with Jack Osbourne, the son of Ozzy Osbourne. And Jack has treated me with great respect, and I appreciate that. And I consider him a friend. And if his dad wanted to, and his mom as well, if they suddenly wanted to develop faith and make God first in their life, I would do anything that I could by the power of God working through me to help them. And same thing for Jack. So But make no mistake, a lot of that music is evil. And look, Ozzy was probably so drugged out back then, he didn't even realize what he was doing or what he was singing, maybe. But a lot of those performers do know exactly what they're doing and what they're saying and what they're singing, because they're preachers and ministers in their own right. And they're preaching a gospel of evil and to try and lead people away from God. And look, I love all people. I would do anything for anybody. But you're asking me a question, and I'm giving you my opinion and what I believe to be an honest answer. It is very dangerous. I've seen interviews with one clip with Gene Simmons of Kiss, to where he said that they had the audience and their audiences under such control that at any time he could give the order to kill and they would start killing. Now that's dangerous stuff.
Yeah, that could be dangerous, I suppose, if it got to that point. City of Roses wants to know if you live in a haunted house and you experience legitimate poltergeist activity and have been told they are very sensitive and you should just embrace it. What should you do? How could you avoid it if it's freaking you out? Should you move out? What do you suggest to people that buy a house and have to deal with this?
Well, first of all, you should never move into a home without blessing it first. Never put a stick of furniture in that home without blessing it first, because you don't know who was there before you, and you don't know what forces might be occupying that residence. You truly don't know. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you got to fight. You cannot just lay down and say, oh, well, it's okay, I can coexist with it and it's not going to hurt me. And all that's not true. There's an attack behind the scenes to create fear. Fear is the number one weapon for the devil and of the devil. So when the devil gets a person in fear, then all the other negative emotions come in with that. And that's the beginning of not only a demonic attachment, but then a demonic oppression, which could lead to, in some cases, a full possession. So it's very dangerous stuff. I would recommend to you to get help ASAP and eradicate and evict that garbage that's in there. You got to fight. You cannot lay down and allow that kind of stuff to get a foothold, because if you do, serious problems could arise from something like that. And I know what it's like to suffer. I grew up in a home that was straight out of hell. And again, like I just said, my mother suffered greatly. I suffered greatly also as a child. We were being physically attacked by these demonic forces, and it greatly contributed to the destruction of my family. Neither of my parents lived to see 50, the age of 50, and many other family members died as well under tragic and mysterious circumstances. And I do believe that those demonic forces played a role in those untimely deaths.
Now, speaking of deaths, I mean, both of these guys probably should have passed away a long time ago with all the stuff they've done. Who do you think will pass first between Ozzy and Keith Richards?
Wow, those two, they just seem like they keep going and going and going. And I pray for them. I do. I mean, again, when I first came into contact with Jack Osbourne, which his people contacted me to do 3 episodes now of his show Fright Club with the Ghost Brothers. I liked Jack from the beginning of our interactions. Never met him, didn't know anything about him, but he and I just had a really good, for some reason, we just clicked. And he showed me great kindness and respect, and of course I did for him as well. I don't know what his beliefs are, and again, he comes from a background of some pretty evil stuff. And I pray for his parents. I really do. And I pray for Keith Richards as well. And I hope that they decide that they want to clean their slate and make God first. Because I'll say this, if you dig in and do research on these things, you'll find some very disturbing information about some of these people, what the practices that they have engaged in, satanic ritual types of practices. And were they under the influence? Oh, I'm sure. But that doesn't excuse the trespass against God and then the legal right that comes on them from the devil and the attachment that will stay with them. And so I pray for them. I do. And it's the same thing, like I said about Sonny. If they contacted me for help, I would be right there to do anything that I could to help them.
Anything new with UFOs lately? We had the government report come out last summer that it actually, I would say, was a step in the right direction, even though it disappointed a lot of people, but I didn't have too high expectations. But things have been pretty quiet since then. No new leaked videos or anything. Do you know of anything going on in that world?
Not in the government world, not in their presentations. And that is very odd that, they would have that buildup and people anticipating a big revelation. And then it was kind of not so much. And then after that, it's kind of just been tamped down. But the UFO sightings continue everywhere on a regular basis. I've had many sightings myself lately of a black triangular craft that has white light on each end, a red light in the center. And one of the lights flashes like a spotlight. It is incredibly bright, and it will go like 1, 2, 3 in a big burst of a flash. I've seen this object many, many times. I'd say probably since mid-2021, and saw it again here from my window recently. I normally see it about like anywhere from 3:30 up to about 5:45 a.m. in the morning. As you know, Hannibal, I'm always up late. I'm up. Sometimes I don't get to bed before 6:30 a.m. So I'm always up late. And when I hear this thing before I see it, and it sounds like you don't hear a plane engine, but what you hear is a big rushing of air, and it's loud. And so then I get up and I go to the window, and many times I've tried to document it, and the picture comes out too dark. I keep this on my desk, and I really need to get something with a night vision and forget about trying to take pictures. I have a little flip phone. That's what I have. I'm a caveman. I'm so behind in the times. But so forget about trying to get anything like that. But I have seen it many times, and other people have seen similar things. I'm having Stan Gordon on my show next month, and he's going to talk about everything that's going on in the Pittsburgh area. There's a lot of sightings going on there, and in other places around the country also. So in my opinion, I don't have all the answers, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. But in my opinion, I think that the increase of all these sightings, which has been going on for the last several years now, a major uptick, I think it's leading to something. I really do. And whether that means that the heavenly divine forces are getting in place, and then the forces of darkness are getting in place for this final showdown, I don't know. That's beyond me. But something is going on here. And a lot of people are still having these sightings and experiences. So that leads me to believe that this is absolutely leading to something.
Patrick would like to know if you've ever done an exorcism on a famous person.
I sure have. You'd be surprised. People in the entertainment industry, politicians, people high up in police departments, you would be shocked. I can't reveal any names, and I won't, but let's just say it would be very, very surprising and shocking with some of the people that have contacted me for help.
And I understand you've actually had some Hollywood offers lately. And of course, you've appeared numerous times on The Haunting. How do you like that side of the game, I guess, where you're actually doing some acting and reenacting some of these real life situations that have occurred with you over the years?
It's tough. Now with the A Haunting series, New Dominion Pictures, I've established a really good relationship and rapport with them, and they let me be me. Ghost Nation, I did several episodes with them, same thing. The camera crew followed me everywhere I went, but they let me be me. Other shows and shoots that I've done, not so much. And that creates a problem, because if I can't be real and authentic, and if they can't capture me in that way, and look, again, I know it's television and they have to have a presentation, and I understand that and I respect that. But when they are depicting me doing this kind of work, for me, it has to be real and authentic. I have to be presented in that way. Otherwise, I'm a clown, and I'm not a clown. So I have to be real at all times and want it to be real and presented and depicted in that way. So I have such utmost respect for A Haunting and New Dominion Pictures, who is the production company, and other companies like that. But boy, Hannibal, there's been a few occasions, I'm thinking of one right now off the top of my head, that it was miserable. I had to go for this shoot 4 days, and man, it was just bad from the start. I knew it. It started off when I flew into the town. They were supposed to have a car pick me up and take me to the hotel. Well, the car was like an hour late showing up, and I knew right then that, oh, this is not going to be good. And sure enough, it was a struggle throughout the whole thing. They wanted me to say things that I wouldn't say, do things that I wouldn't do, and I was non-compliant. I said, absolutely not. You got the wrong guy. Sorry, can't do it. They even wanted me to stay an extra day after the shoot was over, and I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I was at that point, I wanted to run for the airport. And so it ended up, and I try to get along with everybody. I treat everybody with respect. I try to be good and kind to everybody, but I'm not somebody's fool either. So if I don't want to do something, I ain't doing it. And that's what it was coming down to where, yes, they paid me to appear. Yes, I signed a contract. However, I was not going to comply with someone telling me, oh, act this way and say that and do this. No. And so that created a friction. And we got through the shoot, and thank God, but I wouldn't do anything with them again. And there's been a few instances like that where I would never, for no amount of money, go and work for that company again. And it is what it is. I mean, this happens in life. Wish them well. Don't have any hard feelings or bad feelings. Just know that I wouldn't do it again. And yes, some of these offers, I've had a bunch of offers in 2021, and I pray about every single one of them first. And if I feel that God's revealing to me that it is not good or right for me, well, then I don't care what it is. I don't care if they put a blank check down and said, you fill in the number, we need you to do this. And I said, no, sorry, it just doesn't work for me. I can't do it that way.
What's your opinion on Satanism, and what is it exactly? And is it more of a serious thing, or is this just people goofing around?
Well, I think what it is, there's a real agenda to promote this. However, I just read a story about this too. There's in Moline, Illinois, there is an elementary school now that has permitted the Temple of Satan to have after school types of curriculum, which is very, very dangerous. But the spokesman, the co-founder, Lucius Graves or somebody like that, who's the co-founder of this Temple of Satan, says that they don't believe in the devil and they wouldn't be teaching anything about Satanism. Okay, well, why do you exist? What are you there for? What are you going to teach? It makes no sense. So, in my opinion, and look, there are Satanists that have come to me that didn't want to be Satanist anymore, and God worked through me to deliver them and they are making God first in their life now, and they're doing very well. So I would, again, as an invitation for anybody that's into Satanism that doesn't want that anymore, I'm here for you. But these people, this whole thing is steeped in rebellion. Okay, so the devil, Satan, Hasatan, is the original rebel. He rebelled against God. He held a high place and a high position in heaven. He's a son of God. And most people don't realize that because he's a created being. Yahweh created him. Therefore, he is a son of Yahweh. And so he held a very high place in heaven as the choir director for the praise and worship music to God. And the scriptures say that he was adorned with all these beautiful jewels, and he had pipes. Yahweh created him with pipes because he was very musical. And then iniquity was found within him. So it was a jealous type of thing because, in my opinion, he felt that the earth was his birthright and he wanted to claim the earth. And I guess God was not going to allow that. However, in the creation of mankind, Yahweh gave us free will. So we are free to make our choices. So there must be a consequence for the bad choice. And that's why the devil exists in the first place. He's the adversary to mankind based on man's free will. So in one way, yes, he rebelled against God, but in another way, God actually uses him. That's why he doesn't destroy him. He uses him as the adversary to mankind who is there and can infiltrate when a person is making bad choices in their life. So this is all about the spirit of rebellion. I do not hate Satanists. I love everybody. I would do anything that I can, again, to help anybody. I pray for them. I pray that they can see this for what it is. It is the spirit of rebellion, to where they will thumb their nose to God and say they can do anything, anyhow, anyway, anytime. And they can, but there's going to be a price to pay for that at some point.
Do you think there was any truth to Kevin Sullivan being a Satanist, or do you think that was his gimmick?
I don't know. I don't know him other than that encounter I had with him in Powerhouse Gym. I guess it was back in the late 80s. And I got to tell you, Hannibal, and I told you this before, and it's true. He probably doesn't remember, but I was on the bicep preacher curl machine, and he was across the room, and he was standing against the wall, and he was staring at me. He kept staring at me and staring at me. And I kept looking over, and he was staring. And I thought, man, are we going to be fighting here or what? What's going on here? Now, maybe what it was, he was probably just waiting to get on the machine. It's probably, really in reality, looking back on it, it's probably what it was, because at some point he came over to me and said, can I work in with you? And so we were working biceps together, working in. And he was nice, but he had the dark circles under his eyes. So, man, he was still in the gimmick there. I didn't ask him any questions about that. We just had a cordial, hi, how you doing, and all that. And he was nice. And so that's how it ended. But, man, I'll tell you, he was definitely in the gimmick and staring at me like that. And I thought for sure that there was going to be some kind of physical altercation. And so, but it all worked out. And again, I don't know him. I don't know if he, does that stuff for real or whatever. I do remember him from the early WWWF days, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation days, to where he was debuting, and he was sort of, I guess you would call him maybe a mid card or a lower mid card, because he did have some victories, and he was a baby face, and he went against like the Bruiser Brodies when they came in, and the Stan Hansens and all that. So he faced top level competition when he was there. But that was his early formative years. And then, I guess he went to the NWA from there, and then started to develop this character once he got into the Florida territory.
Now, if you had gone into it with Sullivan, I guess that was during your bouncing days in Baltimore, which is why you saw so many of these guys, because Baltimore has always been a hotbed for wrestling. but who would have won between you and Kevin? You definitely had the size advantage.
Yeah, but man, he had leg strength. He was a strong guy. He was short, but very, very strong. And at one time, I think he held a world record for squats. And so I don't know, Devin. I was a pretty tough guy back then, but I don't know. I wouldn't have. I never in my life, never underestimate anybody and think, oh, I kicked this guy's ass. I could. I never underestimate anybody. I was always ready. I was a very calculating individual to where, let's just say, I was prepared and ready for anything. And I don't know. That would have been that. Sometimes when you're in battle with some of those short guys like that, and they've got that type of leg strength, man, that could be a long
Oh,
way.
you better hope he doesn't watch this and hear you call him short, or it might still happen.
Well, I hope not, and I wish him all the best. But I know back then, I'm sure he's probably still very strong to this day. But man, he would have been that would have been quite a fight.
There's a bunch of people on here bringing up superstar Billy Graham, who won the title in Baltimore.
Yeah,
from Bruno
I'll never forget it. And there's an interesting sideline to that story. And I'm glad you brought that up, Devin, because I never met Billy Graham, and he's one of my favorite. Bruno is my favorite all time. Haku, right there in the favorites. Bob Backlund, superstar Billy Graham, Don Morocco, and others. But superstar was in that 1977 match with Bruno in the Civic Center where he won the title. The referee in that match was a man named Jack Davis. And back in that time, let's see, what year would that have been? It was after the title had changed hands, but I would probably say somewhere around 82, 83, maybe 81, 82. I was working as a dishwasher. So I told you that I quit school in the 8th grade, went to work for a construction company. Well, I had a second job too as a dishwasher for the Maryland Yacht Club. And the manager of that was Jack Davis's wife. So he was the referee in that match. And his wife, I don't remember her first name. I called her Mrs. Davis anyway. But her husband was the referee of that match. And she and I talked about that. And she said that her husband got so much heat from that. He was receiving death threats. He was in fear for his life and in fear for his family's life as well. So, man, that was that poor Jack Davis. He was under a lot of heat after that match.
Yeah, and for the fans asking how he's doing, I actually heard from him this week, and he is in the heart failure stage, but he's been dying for years, and he just keeps fighting, and he's another legitimately religious wrestler, and maybe that helps. Maybe that's helped him. He's almost lived to the age that Bruno lived when Bruno passed, and look at the difference in lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. And I pray for Billy Graham, and I'll continue to pray for him. And never met him, but I'm sure we'd have a pleasant meeting if we ever, did communicate in some way. But and if he's watching this, I'll continue to pray for you and your family as well. But Bruno, Hannibal, Bruno, for me, and many of Billy Graham also said this. Bruno, I can't describe it. Bruno had a presence that no other wrestler ever has had, in my opinion. And Bob Backlund said that as well. Bruno had something. I guess he had the authenticity where people really connected with him. No music, came out to the ring, no music, no ring jacket, nothing. He'd come out with the belt and Arnold Skolin, and the people would just go crazy for him. They were so emotionally invested in him. And Bruno was one of the role models of my life. And I have to say Bob Backlund as well, because, and I regret not putting that in my book that, I put that Bruno and Brooks Robinson and Johnny Unitas were three figures that really helped me in my later life that I tried to develop in character after those men, but Bob Backlund too. Bob Backlund, it was, and I'm sure still is, a very good man, very positive role model. And I owe a thanks to Bob Backlund also.
Yeah, he's an interesting fellow. Seems like he could explode at any moment when you're talking to him, but his intentions seem good. You have a book out called Purge. This is one of your books. You
Yeah,
have several. Well, I'm in another one of them.
you sure are.
But, why don't you tell us a little bit about your books?
Well, the Purge book, and I thank you for bringing that up, Hannibal. The Purge book is the latest book. And it's a book of goodness. Not all good, because I start the story off with how bad it was for me and for my family. And I try not to be redundant, but I have to let people know where I came from in order for them to truly understand the transformation that has taken place in my life. Again, am I perfect? No. Do I claim to be perfect? No. Am I one of these smiley face preachers that tell you anything you want to hear as long as they can get your money? No. I've done as much work for free as I have paid work, and will continue to do so because I love people and I care about people. So in this book, Purge, it starts out with the struggles that I had in life, and even the use of drugs and alcohol, and just destructive behavioral patterns I had. So I have, it covers certainly the spiritual, supernatural aspects. It covers addictions. It covers grief. And then I have a final word about things in there. And the most important part of the book is that it is an instruction manual. So there are very powerful prayers in this book that, in my opinion, could be a great help to you if you're struggling and you're having a bad time. And certainly if you are, under the influence of some type of demonic problem, this is the book for you. And I'm not saying it because I'm trying to sell a book, because I'll tell you this right now. If you're out there and you can't afford to buy a copy of this book, send me an email and I will attach a free PDF copy for you. That's how important this is. And so, it's great to sell books and all that. Wonderful. But this is beyond selling a book. This is something that I strongly feel people should apply to their life. And if you'll allow me to read something here, and this is your part now, the book Stranger Than Fiction 2, where Hannibal is featured in this. I know we're running out of time, so I'll be quick. This is the section in my final word in the back of the book where I talk about, I added some people in there and their stories. And it's titled, This is Hannibal. And professional wrestling star Devin Hannibal Nicholson has quite a background, to say the least. He's a professional wrestler and promoter in Canada. His promotion is called Great North Wrestling. He's a former IWA Puerto Rico Intercontinental Champion and two-time WWC Puerto Rico Tag Team Champion as well. He's also he's also had matches for WWE, Impact Wrestling, and has wrestled internationally as a pro. Devin is a former national champion in freestyle wrestling and Canadian Olympic qualification trial silver medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling. He has won the Canadian Open and Ontario Championships in grappling, submission wrestling. That's awesome. I respect that a lot. He won a gold medal at the 2001 Junior National Championships in London, Ontario. A month later, he gained a spot on the Canadian Junior National Teams after winning the national team trials in Vancouver, British Columbia. Nicholson won the OFSAA Wrestling High School Championships in 2000 and in 2001 without a single point scored against him. That's impressive. He was named Amateur Wrestler of the Year by the City of Ottawa in 2001. He's a three-time Canadian champion in pro wrestling and is 3-0 undefeated in kickboxing. So that's impressive. So I had to write about that. And it's not that I was trying to put you over. I spoke the truth. This is you. This is your background, which is very, very impressive. And I admire that.
Well, I appreciate it. Why don't you tell us where people can get the books and where people can follow you and your own YouTube channel?
And I want to thank you again, my brother, for having me on, and thank everybody out there for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you're out there and you want to get a copy of the books, or if you're out there and you're having a spiritual problem, you can contact me at BillJBean.com and email me directly from the site. You can order the books from the site as well. But if you're in spiritual need, you can email me directly from the site. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. I do have assistants, and it might be one of my assistants that get back to you. I am just absolutely immersed every single day and or night of my life in helping people. People come to me for help from all over the world. I've helped people in 50 other countries. I'm busy. I'm always busy, but never too busy to help someone. So, and also if you need prayer, on my Sunday Warrior Mode show, which now airs at 9 p.m. Eastern every Sunday night, and we do it over YouTube and other places as well. You'll see on my website. I have a prayer list of over 500 people. It takes me over 30 minutes to pray that list, and we keep adding to that list, and that's okay, because if you're in need of prayer, contact me and I will add you to that list. And I'll do anything that I could do to help you in any way that I can. So, and Hannibal, I'd like for you to come back on the show soon. I know you're busy as well, but you have an open invitation anytime to be on that show.
Sounds good. It's always a pleasure. And by the way, I don't fully remember the dream, but my grandmother finally came to me in a dream about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Praise God. And I knew she would. And look, I don't pretend to know about the afterlife. I strongly believe that when we leave this earth, I pray that everybody's going to heaven. And I certainly believe that Hannibal's grandmother went to heaven. And we had discussions about this. And I knew that at some point there would be some type of communication, contact, and usually it does take place through dreams. And so I'm overjoyed to hear that you have finally gotten contact from your beloved grandmother, who is soaring with the angels in heaven as we speak.
Yes, it was comforting I should have written down what happened when I woke up instead of going back to sleep. But I definitely remember her being in the dream, and it was nice. I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to say to the fans. Sorry again about Kevin passing away from COVID complications. And thanks again for coming on. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, brother. And I want to say this, that Kev Baker really liked you a lot, and he always enjoyed it when you came on the program. And he's somebody that we're going to miss, continue to miss, just very dear to me. And I'll continue to pray for his family. And again, I want to thank all of you out there. It's been a real pleasure being on. And I'm sure it's different for some of you out there, because Hannibal's interviewing wrestlers most of the time. And so this is a little different, although I do have the wrestler connection. But I'm coming from a different aspect of life. And I hope that you have enjoyed watching this. And again, if you're out there and you're in need, please don't hesitate. BillJBean.com. Contact me, and by the power of God, we'll get you help. So God bless you and your family, Hannibal, and everybody out there. And I wish the very best for everybody. And I pray that this year of 2022 starts to make a turn for the better.
Yeah, we're on full lockdown here in Ontario right now, so we really need to make that turn. I hope it happens.
I certainly hope so, brother. Well, keep in touch and let me know when you're available to come on to Warrior Mode.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates.